Okay, hello and welcome everybody to the first proper episode of the channel. I was going to say the first episode, but it's not the first episode. The first proper episode, the last one was designed, the one before was obviously the trailer for the channel. This is going to be the first episode where we're actually coding. As you can see on the screen, it's starting already. And all we're doing at the moment is just setting up an engine class. So we've got three integers there. We've got a width, a height and a scale. I always put the scale in just in case later on I want to scale it up. I can literally change that number and that will straight away scale it up, the width, the height and all the pixels on the screen as well. I've also set a title of Operation Bank, which is obviously what we're going to be calling this until we come up with a proper name for it. We've then in the main function there, you can see we set up a J frame just called frame with the title as a parameter. Started a new engine and then added the engine to the frame. We've then extended engine to make it extend canvas and implement runnable. These are just two classes that we want to use to make it so that the game is runnable. And you can also see we've set some stuff up in frame, like setting it resizable. The default, setting resizable to false. Default close operation. That means when you close it, it will close the game as well, so it shuts all the game down. The location relative to null, that just means it centers it in the middle of the screen, and then we set it visible as well. And finally we'll pack it as well. And that just sets the dimensions that we've set in the constructor there at the top. That just sets them up so that we can have the window at the size we want it. What we're doing now, are in the run function there. Now run is a function from runnable up above, so that just lets that run. We're setting up some long variables. These just have quite a few decimal places on them. And we've got now, last time and time per tick. That basically now is the system's time, so it gets a time from the computer that tells it what the time is now, and last time equals now. So what we'll have at these, as you see in the while function, the while loop we're using, the now function goes at the top, and then we're going to have last time at the bottom, and that will let it so that it knows how long's taken between each of the loops. And this will have it so we can keep a constant tick rate so the game don't run too quick. That's basically what all this code does. Obviously the times per tick is 1,000 million divided by 60, because we're having it at 60 ticks per second. Sorry. What I may have to do is set the frame rate. I may limit the frame rate eventually, but to begin with, the frame rate's not limited. As you'll see when we run it in a moment. It does print the frame rate and the tick rate, as you see where it says tick rate is greater than 1,000 million, and then it's got system.out. That just prints the frame rate and the tick rate. And then we've got a render function as well that happens all the time in the loops, but as I said, I may limit that down so that it can only do 60 frames a second or something similar. And then what you also see at the minute is the start function we've made. So if it's not running, it creates a new thread about the engine, tells it to start, and then sets running to true. And as you see when I run it, as I said at the bottom, it shows your tick rate and your frame rate, and it is like minus, it's not setting up right. And so this is just me working through trying to work out what it is that's gone wrong. And as you see here, what happens is I'm adding the time between the loops and then testing if it was over a certain amount, and if it is over a certain amount, I was just telling it to tick. I wasn't intending it to take that time off. And when I set it to take the time off, you can see at the bottom there we show 60 ticks per second, and what is that? That's about 60 million frames a second. Well, obviously that's because nothing's happening in it, it's just literally looping. What I'm setting up now is the render function in the actual engine. We set up a buffer strategy variable that retrieves it from the engine, so it tells it how exactly it's buffering, and then we set up a graphics to get the draw graphics from the buffer strategy. So that's to get from the buffer, we get the graphics from it, and then we're going to start drawing the image onto the graphics, so onto the buffer. The image we'll have, as you'll see in a moment, we'll set up an integer array, so that basically each point in the array is a different pixel on the screen that's set by a colour, just as a integer that sets the alpha and then the red, green and blue. And that's what you see us doing here, just making a new buffered image with the width and the height. That's just the image of the screen essentially. That's the one we draw onto the buffer. and here we're making an array of integers called pixels. And what we're doing here, as you'll see the code that happens eventually here, it took me a bit of time to remember how to do this. I haven't done this for a while now, but you see that I eventually get round to it. We're linking the pixels array, to the image, so that as we draw onto the pixels array, it instantly draws it back onto the image, and then we dispose of the graphics and then show the buffer. And what I do here is just create a for loop for the entire of the pixels array, and just set it to be pink, which is what that FFFF00FF is. And then I run it, and I didn't have my recording set up properly, but it did come out pink. A bit further on in this video you'll notice I do set it up properly so that we have the game screen on the window when I run it. I'm using a new screen recorder for my desktop, that's why it's not the best. Like, you won't see as much as I'd like you to have done. And then what we've done is we've made a game class now. So now this game class has functions in it. So all the engine classes are hidden, but this game class, you've got a tick function and a render function, and literally all you do in them is you just directly draw onto the target, and that'll draw it straight on the screen. So we don't have to worry of any of the behind the scenes stuff, setting up the window, the frame rate and all that. That happens in the engine class. Now we've just got the game class that I can interact with. Next I'm making an image class. As I said, these are all going to be programmed from scratch, and so what I've done here is made a fill function as well. The image class has an array of pixels, a width and a height, and what I'm doing now is just filling the screen a certain colour, or making a function so I can fill the screen a certain colour. And as you see, that game class, that will be all we need to do to load, fill and render an image now. And here you'll see a render function I make. When I started doing this, I was just rendering the whole picture and testing if the pixel was off the screen. What I've started doing is making the loop, as you'll see now, setting the variables, because with the x variable, if the x is below 0, then you know that that entire line, or that entire column of pixels, is all going to be off the screen as well. Like, if that x is off the screen, then you know the entire column is going to be off the screen. So for that we can just completely ignore that x value. So that tells it to continue its loop. If it's greater than s width, which means it's off the screen to the right hand side, then you know that any x value after that is going to be pointless. So we break the loop there and we stop the loop, and that'll be the finish of it. The same happens with the y values as well. If it's above the screen, you know all that y value is going to be, all that x value, sorry, is going to be above the screen, so it can continue. If it's below the screen, you know every value after that's going to be off the screen, so you can just jump down. Here I'm just using the true part because I just want to know, it wasn't drawing onto the screen and I wanted to know why not. And again, I haven't got the game screen on the thing. It does come out eventually. I do realise that I'm not doing it, and I put it up onto the screen. What happened here is I forgot to record. Again, it is a new software, so I'm forgetting a lot of things. I do apologise, but the next episode will be a lot better. All I've basically done, this is the sprite sheet I'm using, sorry. What I've done there is I used a new class called sprite, and these are going to be individual images, part of a sprite sheet. So what I'll now be able to do is load this whole page in, tell it that it's 32 pixels to a sprite, and as you see there's the game screen on the right hand side. So it's 32 pixels for the sprite, and a transparent colour, which is what the pink is there, and it will literally load the whole image up and then split it into 32 by 32 pictures. The way I've done it just then was that I had to load an image first and then put that as a parameter. What I've then done now is I've changed it so I can just give it a file name as an image instead, and as you can see there, it didn't work because I named the file wrong, and you see there we had the grass tile at the top. So the sprite sheet does make it a lot easier. What it means is I can just load sheets and sheets in now, and that will literally be the home basically of everything. And this is the art class which I've just made here, and this will hold all the art for the game. do apologise, my screenshot's on. Yeah, that'll hold all the art for the game, so all the characters, everything, including the levels. Now, what you'll see here is I'm making an image class. An image part of the art, sorry. And we're making level 01. And this is how we're going to run our levels. And you'll see the level in a minute. And so what I've now done is I've just put get sprite as a render. And now I'm loading a new level, which is going to be a new class. And as you see, the parameters are level 1, which is just the image of the level. And then art.sheet as well, which is the sprite sheet, which will be a texture map essentially for the level. And you see we set the layout as image.render. And so what we're doing here is I went to set the layout, and then what I decided to do is render the image onto a separate array of pixels, and this way I'll be able to directly edit it in this class rather than having to use functions to edit it through the image class. And I just made a get width and a get height function here, just so that I can do that a little easier. Create a new layout array, and then render it all out. Next, I make a function called render map. This takes the parameters of target and s width, and this just lets me print. And as you see, I go to put exactly on, basically go to type it all out again, then realise I can literally copy the render function from the image class over to here, and all it takes is a little bit of editing, and it will be good enough essentially to use here. And as you can see here, me working around trying to put the code in properly, because what happens now, rather than printing each pixel on, which is what that function does, we want it to print each pixel as a 32 by 32 sprite. So rather than printing the pixel, what it's got to do is draw a sprite there, then move along 32 pixels and draw another sprite there, depending on what the next picture is. And as you can see as well, we do test to see if it's 0, which means if there's nothing there, it doesn't print anything, which is obviously what we want. That happens more obviously with the images, but in this it will happen as well, because it's just sort of a backup layer that we'll use later to say if it equals null, not to print it, because otherwise it will return an error because it's trying to print an icon that doesn't exist. As you can see, we can't read the input file there. I think if I remember rightly, I put the file name wrong, and that was the map there, just the green image for now. It's a 20 pixel by 20 pixel thing, just a quick one that I made. And as you can see there, that's the map we've got printed. That's because, yeah, that was because I was literally just testing to make sure that it prints the screen on there, and then I wanted to edit the x and y values. That's what the this.x and this.y is, so that means we can move the map around. What that's going to do is mean we can move the map around so that it moves the map as well, and you'll notice that happens up here. And what I've done here is originally I divided by the size, but what I realised I need to do is times by the size, and that way it just tests to make sure that tile was on the screen. Then when we render it, it didn't work apparently. As you can see, the tick rate's gone through the roof. That's because it was paused for a bit, and I was also testing the wrong values, and you can see now that it did work. And so that is our game at the moment. That's as much as I've got done. I'm going to get some more done, and then we'll have an episode 2 out. Please comment if you like the format, if you think there's anything better we could do with the format, and anything you want to do with the game. Mainly we need a name. If you can come up with a good idea for a name for the game, please feel free to comment it. If I like it, I may use it and obviously credit you. But for now, please like the video if you did like it, and subscribe to the channel to make sure you keep up with all the episodes coming out. And for now, I'll see you next time. Bye.